Part 81. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 801. Chapter 801 Children are debts. Mr. Wen motioned for them to sit down and told them what happened today from beginning to end. Jiren will be an official in the future, so he must listen very carefully and ask questions if he doesn't understand. Although Jie Huan is not interested, he still tries to imprint it in his mind. Some families are happy and some are sad. The Li family has achieved an initial victory and is teaching their children with great interest, but the Wu family of the Marquis of Zhongning Mansion is not so happy. Since the old Marquis entered the palace sick that year and asked for a pardon for his grandson to enlist in the army, his health has deteriorated day by day. To this day, I almost have less air coming in and more air coming out. The family had even prepared funeral items, and they were just waiting for the old man to get on his way after receiving the invitation from the Lord of Hell. The Wu family's financial resources, including the secret manpower, have been handed over to Mr. Wu. Unexpectedly, 2 dead soldiers were killed in the first attack. Mr. Wu didn't dare to tell his father. He went out to court once and brought back the bad news that he had been suspended from work and had to spend time behind closed doors to think about his past. Mr. Wu was originally dissatisfied with his elder brother, but this time he got the handle and went directly to the old man. The old man was much more perceptive than his 2 sons. Lying on the hospital bed, he glared at the eldest son and asked him if he had done anything to cause such trouble to the family. Mr. Wu refused to admit it and tried to defend himself. "Dad, I didn't do anything. It's really a disaster that came from heaven. Perhaps someone is thinking about setting up a crown prince and wants to use our family to suppress the queen." This was just an excuse he made casually, but the more he said it, the more it made sense. So he added more jealously and said, "Dad, the queen is the daughter of our Wu family. We can't be bullied like this. Do you want to go to the palace again?" Before he could finish speaking, the old Marquis had already grabbed the pillow and smashed it out. "Idiot, you still haven't told the truth, you." The old Marquis wanted to curse a few more words, but unfortunately his body was already at the end of his strength, and he couldn't lift it up in one breath, and there was a loud roar in his throat. Everyone was so frightened that they quickly went to the doctor to diagnose their pulse, administer acupuncture, and prescribe medicine. After all this, the old man breathed a sigh of relief and was half dead. The whole family was also tired and fell on their backs. They had no energy to quarrel anymore. Both Mr. Wu and Mr. Wu know it in their hearts. Their talents are too mediocre and they have no face at all with the emperor. The only person in the family who can say a few words in front of the emperor is the old man. If the old man passes away, the Wu family will still be the queen's family, but there will be no holy family members left. Especially since the family is now closed in on its past and is being investigated by the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple, a lot of problems will definitely be discovered. They still expect the old man to use his last breath to help the family escape the disaster. This night, I finally looked forward to dawn. Mr. Wu returned to his yard, changed his clothes, and planned to find Qingke to study countermeasures. As a result, the son who was hanging out somewhere came back. He didn't know that his father was in the back room. When he saw his mother when he entered the door, he started making a fuss. "Mom, please bring me 500 taels of silver. I am such an old man, but the future Marquis of Zhongning has such a tight wallet that he can't even come up with money to pay bills when drinking, which makes people laugh. Also, Mom, give me a post from my father. I have a friend who wants to enter Luoan Academy, but there is no way. I asked him to get my father's post from Luoan Academy. Luoan Academy doesn't dare not accept it." Mrs. Wu was angry and annoyed when she heard this, and scolded, "You unfilial son, something big happened at home, you can't help, just forget it, you are still fooling around outside, quickly break up with those bad friends. Our family has to sit back and reflect on our mistakes. Your father has also been suspended. Mr. Wu and his friends have been drinking and having fun in the small courtyard he bought privately for the past few days. Especially yesterday, he was so drunk that he didn't know that something happened at home. When I heard my mother talk about it now, I thought I was scaring him. Mom, you know how to joke, my sister is the queen, who dares to bully our family? Hurry up and get me some money and a name card. My friends are still waiting. Mrs. Wu still wanted to speak, but Mr. Wu had already rushed out of the room with a dark face. He picked up the teapot on the table and rushed towards his son to smash it. You traitor! What's the use of giving birth to you and raising you? Apart from causing trouble for the family, it's all about eating, drinking, and having fun. I told you earlier not to get caught outside, but you didn't listen. There are so many women you can play with for money, and if you don't play, why are you robbing a good girl? I'll beat you to death, let you get into trouble again. Young Master Wu was so frightened that he walked around the table, crying for help. Mrs. Wu only had one son, and no matter how angry she was, she couldn't bear to see him being beaten, so she hugged the master for dear life to persuade him. Master, tell your son slowly, he doesn't know such a big thing happened at home. Young Master Wu was still confused and quickly responded, Yes, Dad, tell me. Even if I'm being beaten, I still have to know why I'm being beaten. Why? Ask me why. Mr. Wu threw away his old wife and went after his son again. Young Master Wu was eventually caught and beaten until his nose was bruised and his face was swollen, and he finally burst into tears. Father, beat me to death and you will be happy, let's see who will provide for you in the future. Mrs. Wu also hugged her son and cried together, Yes, beat my son to death, then you go find a vixen to have a few boys, and we too will make room for your new love. Besides, people are suing our family for robbing women and misappropriating land. Even if the woman was raped because the son was ignorant and made a mistake, it was you who did it to embezzle land. Why don't you hit yourself? Why should you hit my son? I have to say that women who protect calves are not to be messed with. Mrs. Wu's few words made Mr. Wu so angry that his face turned purple and he wanted to fall to the ground. Think about the root cause of this chaos, which is to take Princess Kangle's heart and soul and help the maiden in the palace get pregnant and give birth to a child. At first I thought it was not a big deal. Even if it didn't work out and offended the Li family would just hold grudges and strictly protect Princess Kangle. Who would have thought that the Li family's counterattack would be so fierce and cruel? He smashed the teapot in his hand and sighed, My children are all debts. At the same moment, Mrs. Wen was sitting in the study. Seeing his eldest son who was timid and guilty, his mood was complicated, and in the end he said the same sentence, Children are debts. He has always been partial to the eldest son and has high hopes for him, always thinking that the eldest son will take on the important task of bringing glory to the Wen family. For this reason, he forcefully forced his second son to join Kui's family. But in the past few years, I have seen that the second son has been doing well, and the Holy Family has become more and more important, but the eldest son has become less and less useful. He would regret it occasionally and thought about teaching his eldest son well. There were still many opportunities, so he might not be able to compare with that unfilial beast in the future. But before he could start, the eldest son robbed Mo Fang and even killed people, killing his own official first. Wen Junyan felt uneasy when his father didn't speak, so he quickly knelt down and begged for mercy. Father, this is all the fault of my second brother. He went crazy for some reason and sued the Jiangning Haofu. The Haofu was angry and took revenge on me. Father, you have to make the decision for me. Call the second son back and ask him to solve the problem no matter what. I can't be dismissed. Old Mrs. Wen was silent and refused to speak. At this time, footsteps suddenly came from outside the door, and the door was pushed open. Posted in the third update, I was delayed for a while today because of something, so I'm a little late. Please forgive me, dear friends, and try to be on time in the future. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 802. Chapter 802. Thanks to the Chen family this time. Sir, what's wrong with Junyan? Why is he suspended at home? Mrs. Wen asked directly as she entered the door, her expression full of panic. She seems to have been particularly favored by time. 2 or 3 years have passed, and she still looks weak and innocent. At this time, she was wearing a plain dress, her hair was pulled up in a bun, and a white hosta was inserted, which made her skin tone smooth and wrinkle-free. How does this look like a woman in her 50s? Some people believe her even if she says she is 40. Old Mrs. Wen married her because he loved her so much in the first place. As a result, what we need in life is a good wife and mother, not a young girl who holds a storybook all day long and mourns the spring and autumn. Favors move around, children teach, and the family is in charge. Everything cannot be accomplished. At a time like today, shouldn't the old lady in charge of the house be able to frighten the slaves and stabilize the back house? In the end, what's the use of being so anxious and crying with your eyes red? Who else can you expect to coax her? Mr. Wen was bored and waved him away. Go back quickly and read your words. You can't help with the family affairs. Mrs. Wen didn't feel abandoned either. She thought it was her husband who felt sorry for her, so she pulled up her handkerchief and sobbed, "No matter how much the master feels sorry for me, I can't help it. How can I just sit back and ignore something like this happen to my son? I'm going to find Qinglin and ask him to find a solution. How could he harm Junyan like this just for a few pieces of ink?" Hearing this, Wen Junyan immediately hugged his mother and cried, "Mom, my second son is so cruel." That Anyang County magistrate was his classmate, and the matter itself was suppressed. Now he has provoked it again, just to kill me. He can't see me being filial to my parents. The chief at the door lowered his head, and the corners of his mouth twitched. In the past few years, the number of times the eldest gentleman has gone into the backyard to greet the old lady can be counted in one slap. And every time he came to greet the old lady, it was to ask the old lady for personal money to squander. Nowadays, when I say the word fulfillment of filial piety, I really don't think I am too shabby. Mrs. Wen finally persuaded her mother-in-law to come over, and now she said to the old man, "Father, my second brother has always been filial to his mother, why don't I accompany my mother to Sujintan? No matter how dissatisfied the second brother is with the family, he will never get angry with his mother. The other second brother and his sister-in-law have given birth to a little girl, and I have prepared some things to send them together." Mr. Wen thought of his stubborn second son, and a flash of anger and displeasure flashed in his eyes. But when he looked at his eldest son, who was as panicked as a lost dog, he finally nodded and told his eldest daughter-in-law, "Please accompany your mother. Remember to give good advice to the second son and his wife. Even if you are dissatisfied with the misunderstandings at home, you should calm down in the past few years. As long as they come back and kowtow a few times, they can still recognize their ancestors and return to their clan." Mrs. Wen's pupils shrank. "In my heart, I really don't want my second son to come back and divide the family property, but now it's more important to save my husband." She just secretly sent someone to inquire. If her husband is found guilty, dismissal from office will be a minor offense, and at least 5 years of hard labor will be added. If the husband goes to do hard labor, the family will be broken up. Mr. Wen was relieved to see that his daughter-in-law had no objection. The eldest son is obviously dead, and the future prosperity of the Wen family must still depend on the second son. Let the second child re-enter the house first, and the rest can be discussed later. Thinking like this, he held his head and ordered, "Go and ask the doctor. I have a headache and want to vomit." Mrs. Wen understood this and loudly ordered her servants to quickly invite the doctor with great fanfare. When Junyan also asked, it would be better to find more doctors and consult together. Only Mrs. Wen, with tears in her eyes, rushed over to hold the old man's hand, looking as if the sky was falling in panic. She almost fainted from crying before others could do anything. It is said that when there are fewer people, it is easier to eat, but when there are more people, it is easier to work. In Broken Gold Beach, everyone worked together just to build a few huts, and the speed was naturally very fast. How long has it been since? The foundation of the new house has been laid and the walls have begun to be built. Zindu is more than 1,000 miles south than the northern land where the Li family originally lived, and the climate is much warmer. Therefore, the wall does not need to be too thick. In half an afternoon, it was almost half the height of a person. Mr. Wen and Li Lao walked around the construction site as usual from the city. When they came out, they saw Mrs. Wen holding Yu Yair in her arms. Mr. Wen quickly picked up his daughter. Mrs. Wen smiled and said, "Auntie is leaving us to eat. You can come over when you go home and change your clothes." Okay, the family of three walked a few steps and entered the gate of their own courtyard. Sister-in-law Kyung saw that the masters had something to say, so she led Yu Yair to wash her hands. Mrs. Wen helped her husband change into a homely azurite quilted robe. She looked at it a few more times and couldn't help but feel happy. As the saying goes, love comes from the heart. In the past few years, life has been peaceful, especially after the birth of Yu's son. The depression accumulated in the early years of my husband's life has completely dissipated. Now his eyebrows are relaxed and he is more elegant and steady. But when she remembered something, she was a little worried. Seeing that there was no one else in the room, she asked in a low voice, "Senior brother, I'm afraid the Wen family is going to come to investigate. How should we deal with it then?" Wen Junyan definitely doesn't want to be dismissed from office, Mr. Wen snorted coldly, refusing to even call him eldest brother. My father is too proud to come to plead for mercy, and Wen Junyan also wants to think about his mistakes behind closed doors, so it must be my mother and sister-in-law who came to plead for mercy. If I'm not at home, just say you listen to me and then complain to my mother. My mother has no ideas and will not use her status as an elder to pressure you. Mrs. Wen sighed. It was really embarrassing for the couple to meet the Wen family. When it comes to blood ties, those who are close can no longer be close. But when the disaster came, the Wen family acted too coldly and cruelly. She suddenly asked curiously, "How did you know about Wen Jiaqiang's purchase of Mofang?" Mr. Wen looked bad, chose a jade pendant and hung it on his belt, and said, "It's a coincidence, it's a message from the Chen family." They no longer had the job of city defense at home, and they were all from the army and could not study, so they formed a bodyguard bureau. A few days ago, they took a business trip to Anyang. They heard about it locally and knew that Wen Junyan was my brother. When they came back, they came to me and made it clear. Fortunately, they reported the news, otherwise Wen Junyan would have used my name to smooth things over, and I wouldn't have even known that my classmate was also responsible for it. And it's at a critical moment in our fight with the Wu family and the Wang family. If we hadn't made careful arrangements in advance, we would have almost been completely defeated. Mrs. Wen nodded. She also didn't like Wen Junyan acting selfishly. "Okay, don't worry, I know what to do." The couple reached an agreement and took their children to have dinner next door. Jiyan has been craving green corn lately, and took some out of the space last night. Half of it is cooked, and the remaining half is peeled and beaten into a paste with sugar. Then it is fried in a pot until both sides are golden, and it tastes crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. The light sweetness is accompanied by a strong fragrance of corn. Mrs. Li and the children especially like to eat it. Especially Seeing and Crescent Moon, each of them was wearing a stain-resistant blouse. The little fat man was holding a spoon in his hand, eating happily and boldly. "Auntie, the fried corn is delicious, I will eat it tomorrow." Seeing was eating this meal and still thinking about that meal. Yu Yair also nodded. She wanted to speak, but her mouth was full, so she could only try to nod along. Everyone couldn't help but laugh, and the dinner table became more lively. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 803. Chapter 803, Just have a clear conscience. In fact, for adults, children are happier when eating sweet food than eating it in their own mouths. Jian ate 2 baked corns, then took a stick of boiled corn and ate it slowly. The taste was sweet and sticky, making her squint her eyes happily. In her previous life, eating fruit corn was very popular for a while, but she didn't like it. She preferred the sticky corn from her hometown. For this reason, after she returned to the village, she exchanged a lot of seeds with the villagers. In the past few years, after planting several crops in the space, the quality of the seeds has been improved, and they taste sweeter and waxier. A paragraph ago, when the medicinal materials grown in the space were harvested, she simply planted sticky corn. Last night she was busy breaking them off and keeping them in preparation for the fresh food supermarket she had been planning. Soon, everyone had enough to eat and drink, cleared the table, and sat around chatting. Grandma he sent the maids to go to work, and then she took Shui Ling and Shui Yun to guard the door, so that the masters could talk with peace of mind. Mr. Wen was worried about his family and said to Mrs. Li, "Auntie, I'm afraid the Wen family will come to ask for mercy. If I'm not at home, please help Jinro and don't let her suffer." Mrs. Wen blushed and said angrily, "I'm not a child, so why should you worry?" Old Mrs. Li smiled happily, "Don't worry, my first grade title may become moldy and grow mushrooms. If someone bullies Jinro, I will definitely show my face and support Jinro. There are some things that Jinro, as a junior, would be hard-pressed to say, but I won't hide them." Tao Hongying also said, "I will be at home these 2 days. Mr. Wen doesn't need to worry about it. Broken Gold Beach is at the door of our home. How can we let anyone come and run wild?" Mr. Wen thanked him with a cupped hand, and then told Jiren, "If you encounter someone gossiping when you go out, just speak up and don't worry about my reputation. No matter what a man does, he will not be criticized by others. We just want to have a clear conscience." "Yes," Teacher Jiren stood up, saluted, and solemnly responded. Jiyan blinked his big eyes twice, held the purse on his waist in his hand, and asked, "Second uncle, if the Wu family wants to shut up and think about their mistakes, can they not do bad things? Then can I just go into the city and take a walk?" Her words seemed to have stirred up a hornet's nest. Everyone's expressions changed and they all loudly refused. "No." Jiyan made a sad face and said in frustration, "There is no reason to guard against thieves the day before. Is it possible that if the Wu family is not destroyed, I won't be able to go out? Besides, no one can guarantee whether there will be a Feng family, a Zhao family, or a Lu family in the future, and I can't live in hiding for the rest of my life." Mrs. Li hurriedly pouted at the side and chanted repeatedly, "The bad ones don't work, the good ones work. The bad ones don't work, the good ones work." After saying that, she reached out and severely tapped her granddaughter on the forehead, and cursed angrily, "How old are you, and you don't have a doorkeeper for your mouth? Why are you cursing yourself?" Seeing that the old lady was angry, Jiyan quickly clung to her grandma's arm and acted coquettishly. "Grandma, I was wrong, I really know I was wrong. I am loved by everyone and flowers bloom, of course everything will be smooth sailing from now on, everything will fall into place." Everyone was amused by her lazy look. Old Mrs. Li also couldn't laugh or cry, and said helplessly, "This is bullying me, an old woman, for not having read a book, isn't it? Apologize, Just apologize, why do you keep saying it endlessly? After saying that, she felt sorry for her granddaughter who was trapped in the house, and whispered, wait for a while, wait until your uncle and others clean up the Wu family, and then we can go out. If you take a step back and say, our family really can't do anything to the Wu family, grandma will send you to Quanzhou. Your third brother is a general over there, and your uncle also bought a courtyard. The mountains are high and the emperor is far away. No matter how long the Wu family's hand is, they can't reach it. Jiyan nodded and asked, Grandma, why do you think these people have no conscience? The corn and potatoes grown at home are all provided by our family. They just had a good harvest and they actually bullied our family. I get angry just thinking about it. Old Mrs. Li got to know her granddaughter and immediately asked, have you had any other ideas? Jiyan chuckled, it's nothing, I just want to teach them a lesson. Old Mrs. Li couldn't make the decision, so she looked at Mr. Li and Mr. Wen. Li Lao thought for a while and said, you can do whatever you want, and you can do it in a good tone. Mr. Wen also said, the Wu family was caught off guard that day in the court hall, and now they dare not move easily. Just do whatever you want, the Wu family will have to suffer the consequences of being dumb. Jiyan was so happy that he quickly said, thank you, second uncle and senior uncle. Don't worry, I will definitely not ruin your arrangements, nor will I hurt innocent people. Everyone chatted a few more words and then dispersed to rest. As expected by Mr. Wen, not long after he went to the yamen on the second day, Mrs. Wen and Mrs. Wen came to the door. After receiving the news, Mrs. Li, Tao Hongying, and Jiyan all rushed over. Mrs. Wen is younger than Mrs. Li. She has a royal decree, but she is only of the third rank. Compared to Mrs. Li's first-grade imperial edict, it is not even a little bit lower. Even Tao Hongying's status is higher than that of Mrs. Wen. In the past 2 years, Li Laozi has been fighting with the Northern Expeditionary Army and has been promoted to the third rank of general, which is very majestic. On the other hand, Wen Junyan has wasted many years and is still the fourth-rank official of Honglu Temple. He is free to entertain cats and dogs every day and has no real power at all. Let alone Jiyan, a princess with a fiefdom and a title. So, as soon as the 3 members of the Li family entered the house, Mrs. Wen and Mrs. Wen could only stand up and salute. Mrs. Wen respectfully helped Mrs. Li sit in the main seat and held the tea in her own hands. Jiyan even held Yu Ye in her arms and teased her for a few words, then she asked as if she had just seen the Wen family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, oh, sister, you have a guest here, why do you look familiar? Mrs. Wen was amused and said, these are the old lady and the eldest lady of the Wen family. Ah, is this the same Wen family who didn't save his uncle that year when his uncle was thrown into prison, but also immediately kicked him out of the house? Jiyan's face was full of surprise, and she continued without any hesitation, it's really strange. Didn't the Wen family want their junior uncle? Why did they find him again? He's such a shameless person. Mrs. Wen, a simple person like her, now turned red with embarrassment. Mrs. Wen clutched the veil even more tightly. If she hadn't been thinking about her husband who was waiting for help at home, she would have wanted to throw away her hands and leave. Okay, good news, Tao Hongying saw that the heat was almost over, so she pretended to persuade, say a few words, maybe people are here to see crescent moon. Jiyan was even more reluctant, it's impossible, Yu Ye is already 2 years old, why did she come? Does the Wen family live on the moon before the news spreads? Mrs. Wen wanted to find a crack in the ground and crawl in. Mrs. Wen's veil would be torn into strips. Mrs. Wen then said, Princess, for the sake of your uncle, don't worry too much. Humph, Jiyan snorted coldly. She kicked the deerskin boots on her feet, and the small gold on the toes of the shoes trembled. She looked very arrogant, and then she said reluctantly, get up. The Wen family's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law quickly straightened up. Their backs were sore for a while. The arrogance that I felt when I came to the door just now were all right, but they were all dispelled by such a difficulty. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 804. Chapter 804. How can there be such a truth in the world? Mrs. Wen was impatient to entertain them and asked directly, I wonder what important matters the old lady has when you come here today? The broken gold beach is difficult to enter. It's better to send a slave. Next time something happens it will be more convenient. Mrs. Wen was a little at a loss and looked at her eldest daughter-in-law. Mrs. Wen gritted her teeth secretly, but she still lowered her attitude and said, Sister-in-law, your eldest brother was greedy for a moment and was encouraged by the housekeeper, and he did something wrong. Now that your elder brother has realized that he was wrong, he is reflecting behind closed doors at home. But the people from the Ministry of Punishment and Dali Temple are not willing to let you go, fearing that if they continue to investigate, a small mistake will turn into a big one. Brother and sister, can you wait for your second brother to come back and talk to him to help find a favor to pick out your eldest brother? They are brothers, even if their bones are broken, their tendons are connected at this time. It's time for us to be in the same boat. Madam, Mrs. Wen became angrier as she listened, and said coldly, Madam is not that old, so she shouldn't be so forgetful. I remember when my senior brother was imprisoned, I asked for help everywhere, and the first one I went to was your house. That's not what the lady said at the time. You said that if my senior brother makes a mistake, he should take responsibility for it himself and not involve the family. Just pretend that there is no such son in the family, and the elder does not have such a brother. In the future, the relationship will be broken and there will be no relationship. What's going on now? When our family needed help, we were kicked out of the house and cut off from each other. When something happened to you, you became brothers again, with your bones broken and your tendons connected. How can there be such a truth in this world? Is it all for your parents? Mrs. Wen's face turned black and red from embarrassment, and she was about to bleed. Had she known this, she would never have said that she was so heartless. Mrs. Wen became a little anxious when she saw that the two daughters-in-law were about to quarrel. She wiped her tears and said, Jinro, mother knows that you are complaining for Kinglin, but Kinglin is a member of the Wen family after all. Your father is seriously ill and has a severe headache. Can you ask Qinglin to go back and take a look? Mrs. Wen was holding back her anger, but it was hard to get angry with such a mother-in-law. Hence, the good news of being promoted to a small sparring expert spoke again. Mrs. Wen, is Mr. Wen sick? My uncle is not a doctor, so why do you want to see my uncle? Besides, when my uncle was in prison, why didn't Mr. Wen fall ill immediately? We are all sons, why aren't fathers treated the same? This. Mrs. Wen wanted to say that the second son did not need to be treated when he returned home. As long as the eldest son was saved, the old man could heal himself without medicine. But she instinctively shut her mouth, always feeling that she would be beaten if she said this. Mrs. Wen has been in charge of the family for several years and is somewhat arrogant. When she saw this, she stopped her mother-in-law and said directly, Brother and sister, our master is counting on my second brother to save his life. Just tell me, why did you act like that, and how can you get your second brother to help? Mrs. Wen glanced at her and was glad that she had not entered the Wen house. Otherwise, having such a selfish and arrogant sister-in-law would definitely make life difficult for me. She replied calmly, whatever the eldest lady said, what happened back then has long since passed, and I don't even remember it. Now that senior brother has married into our Kui family and has nothing to do with the Wen family, how can an outsider interfere in the affairs of your Wen family? And if a prince breaks the law, he is as guilty as the common people. Senior brother is just a censor, let alone knowing the law and breaking the law. I'm really sorry. I'm afraid we, husband and wife, Can't help. You are presumptuous. Mrs. Wen couldn't bear it any longer, stood up suddenly and cursed, "Our master is in such trouble today because he was dragged down by his second brother. If he hadn't gone to offend the Wu family, how could our master have been caught? If our master had any bad intentions, I wouldn't let you have it easy even if I risked my life." Mrs. Wen slammed the tea bowl and yelled back, "I think you are the one who is presumptuous. This is our Kui family, not the Wen family. If you want to show off, you should also open your dog eyes and see clearly. Did we force your master to rob someone else's ink shop and kill people? Were we the ones who made your master lose his conscience and left a clue? You have lived for half your life and you still don't know that you have to be punished if you make a mistake. Your surname is Wen. If you want our family to have a hard time, try it if you have the ability. It's best to ask your mother-in-law to wipe her clean, otherwise your husband will go to hard labor first, and your father and brother will follow." Mrs. Wen's face turned pale when she heard this, and her lips trembled and she did not dare to stop. Threaten. Her natal family is indeed not a decent family, and it will definitely do no good if she is really targeted. Mrs. Wen was so frightened that this was different from what was written in the storybook. Isn't it a time of crisis when brothers resolve misunderstandings and families reunite? What else did she want to say? Mrs. Wen had already issued an eviction order. "Old madam, if you miss your son in the future and come over as a guest, I will certainly welcome you. But if you are provoked by others to cause trouble, there is no need to come again." After saying that, she brought the tea bowl. Mrs. Wen looked a little hesitant, struggling in her heart, wanting to act up. What if her younger siblings were thin-skinned and couldn't stand the noise, so they agreed to help? In the end, before she could make a decision, Tao Hongying saw her plan. Tao Hongying picked up the teapot, opened it, looked at it, and said with disgust on her face, "Jinro, the honey used in this candied date tea is not from our family, right? Why does it taste sour when you drink it?" After saying that, she raised her hand and poured all the water in the teapot onto the ground. Mrs. Wen frowned and subconsciously lifted the corners of her skirt. Her ivory horse-faced skirt with ruyi patterns was newly made. After such a delay, Granny Lin and Xiaoqing had already stepped forward, helped her and Mrs. Wen and walked out. Mrs. Wen stood at the door and breathed a long sigh of relief when she saw her mother-in-law and sister-in-law being sent out of the courtyard. After turning around, she patted her chest and sat next to Mrs. Li, saying over and over again, "Auntie, thank you so much for your and Hongying's help. Otherwise, these two people, one is my senior brother's mother and the other is my senior brother's sister-in-law, cannot be beaten or scolded, but they are disgusting. I really don't know what to do. What does the family say?" Mrs. Li smiled happily, patted her hand, and consoled her, "If we are not at home at any time and they come over again, you can push Mr. Wen. They are the blood relatives of the family. If you are caught in the middle, it is easy for you to become someone else." "Okay, I'll listen to my aunt." Mrs. Wen sighed and glanced at her daughter. Yu Yater was sitting in Ji Yin's arms, playing with a white jade rabbit pendant. Mrs. Wen hates the Wen family even more. The daughter just now was sitting in front of me, and Mrs. Wen didn't even look at her. At dinner time, the village chief had a drink at Li's house. Tomorrow the roof of the house will be built, and everyone will discuss whether to set up a few tables for banquets. Because of the incident at the Earl's mansion, everyone is still worried. So, in the end, we decided to just treat the master chef and the young and old men working in the village to a good meal and a bowl of wine. Ji Yin had enough to eat and drink, so he didn't join in the fun and returned to the princess's mansion early. Shui Ling Shui Yun guarded the empty bedroom door, but good news had already followed. Yeshan Dongmei, galloping into the night on horseback. Third update: the community has just issued a notice that there will be water and power outages from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. tomorrow. I stayed up late tonight coding. If I update later or less tomorrow, friends, please understand. Our county will conduct maintenance in the spring and autumn, and safety comes first. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, delayed flowering. Chapter 805. Chapter 805, Fire burns half the sky. Previously, the imperial court suddenly moved south, and many wealthy families from Kyoto moved to the new capital. Shops must be built in the city, and of course there must be a farm outside the city to provide firewood, rice, and vegetables. As a result, the local zhuangzi became popular. To this end, all parties are competing and using all their means. Some people robbed it, some people exchanged it, and some people bought it at a high price. In short, after a few years, various forces finally found a balance point. Of course, as the mother of the queen, the Wu family couldn't bear to do anything wrong. In the end, after some hard work, they got 2 farms. The first one is Yong'an village, which is 70 miles southeast of Xindu. The second one is several dozen miles further east and is called Anil village. Yong'an village has fertile land, more than 200 acres in total, which is flat and easy to cultivate. There is also a small river flowing on one side of the village. It can be said that in a slightly worse year, there will be no fear of drought or flood here, and 70 to 80% of the grain will be harvested. The weather is going well this year, and naturally it will be a bumper harvest. Originally, sorghum and millet were grown in the village, but since Tianwu obtained high-yielding corn and potatoes, the Wu family followed everyone else and switched to planting these 2 types. The autumn harvest has just been completed. The potatoes have been put into the cellar, and the corn has been dried enough to be stored in the granary. For safety and to avoid fire, the granary was built outside Zhuangzi, and some guards were assigned to guard it in 3 shifts. The sky is high and the home is far away. Without the supervision of the master, how can the nursing staff do their best? Pretend during the day and patrol twice. As soon as it gets dark and the door of the warehouse is closed, everyone goes to sleep, gambles, feeling very comfortable. So, in the middle of the night, someone got in through the ventilation window at the back of the warehouse, took away all the grain bags, and put medicine in the buckets. It was really easy. No one was found or had any clues during the entire process. It wasn't until the guards fainted like dead dogs and were carried out of the warehouse, and a fire was lit, that the farmers not far away discovered it. Countless people, old and young, banging copper basins and carrying buckets, rushed to put out the fire. Unfortunately, the warehouse was already burning and it was starting to fall apart, and no one could get in. But more than an hour later, Anlazhuang, further to the east, was also filled with fire. At night, the red fire was particularly dazzling. Even many people in Xindu discovered it and were frightened. Soon, the city defense camp sent hundreds of soldiers to investigate. On the second day, barely before breakfast, the news that the 2 large farmsteads of the Wu family had been completely burned down reached the ears of each family owner. Who did the Wu family offend? A few days ago, they were involved in a crime, and they were still thinking about it behind closed doors. Why is the farm burned down again now? Could it be that the ghost of the former owner of the farm is still there, taking advantage of the Wu family's weakness to take revenge? The mistress of a certain family was gossiping in a low voice while serving the master dinner. As a result, the man who was drinking wolfberry porridge snorted coldly and scolded him in a low voice, "Don't say this out loud. How can there be so many gods, Buddhas, and ghosts in the world? It's just that the Wu family's methods of doing things were too rough, and others found out." The mistress was unconvinced and retorted, "I just heard that there was not a grain of grain left in the farm, and all that was burned down was the shelf of the granary. Even the guard guarding the granary was carried out without any harm to his life. This is the 5-ghost moving technique. The previous master must have died unjustly and refused to reincarnate. I heard that the Wu family was accused and someone was supporting them, so they came to take revenge. The head of the house didn't want to waste any time arguing with his wife, so he could only tell her, "You can do whatever you want, just don't go out and talk nonsense." Someone proposed to establish a prince before, and it didn't take long for the Wu family to be in bad luck. There are too many things involved. Don't be rude and cause trouble for the family. The mistress became more honest after hearing this, and responded reluctantly, "The most I can do is talk to you, who else can I talk to?" Not to mention that each family is sitting on the mountain watching the tiger fight, quietly watching the Wu family's misfortune, waiting for the situation to clear up. Ordinary people don't have so many scruples. Whoever has a few idlers hanging around in front of the little widow's door in the alley will be picked out and talked about for several days, let alone such a big event that combines supernatural, suspense, grudges, revenge and other wonderful elements. The restaurants, even the large and small tea shops in the streets and alleys, were almost overcrowded. The shopkeeper and the clerks were busy with their feet on the ground, grinning from ear to ear. "Did you see the fire last night? I happened to be walking outside the city, and my place of stay was only a dozen miles away from the Wu family's village. That fire, it burned so hard. There were screams everywhere, and I don't know how many people were burned to death." A small businessman brought a tea bowl and spoke with spitfire, expecting to be asked about the details. Unfortunately, someone immediately retorted to him, "Forget it. Stop bragging." People said that both farms were burned down, but no one inside was hurt. "Yes, I heard about it too." The old man next to him also nodded, "I guess it was a group of thieves, otherwise it wouldn't be so benevolent." "That's what I guessed too," a young man agreed loudly, with regret on his face. "I just don't know where these thieves have gone. I really want to learn from them." Everyone laughed when they heard this. Someone who knew this young man shouted, "Young Master Joe, if you don't go to school quickly, your mother may find out and chase you for several streets again." It turns out that this half-grown boy's family is from a wealthy family and he lives nearby. He comes to join in the fun on the way to school. The young man had no choice but to grab his school bag and walk out, muttering, "When I learn how to do it, my mother will never be able to hit me again." Everyone laughed even harder, and the shopkeeper said, "Young Master Joe is so blessed that he never knows how lucky he is. Reading is such a rare thing." "Yeah, but that's normal. Who doesn't want to learn skills when they are young and become a hero who can fly over walls and climb walls?" The regular customer next to him answered, then asked again, "I just don't know what the Wu family did. This disaster. I don't know, but I must have done something wrong. How many of these people can behave and sit upright?" There is a sour show who is a bit cynical and courageous. He speaks out what everyone is thinking when he opens his mouth. Everyone also used his words to say a few words in a vague way. Of course, smart people would not dare to blatantly criticize the Queen's mother's family, but everyone has a bad impression of the Wu family in their hearts. Originally, it was only through her daughter that she achieved her current status, and she did not contribute much to Tianwu on weekdays. In the past, there were a lot of accusations made by the censor, and in the later days, thieves burned down the farm. If he was really a kind and good family, he wouldn't have so much trouble. In the princess's mansion behind Broken Gold Beach, Jiyan was sleeping soundly with her arms in her arms. "I ran around for so long last night that I didn't get home until almost dawn. I was really tired." Old Mrs. Lee saw that the sun was rising and her granddaughter had not returned to her old house, so she felt a little worried about her, so she came over. Shui Ling and Shui Yun dare to stop others, but they don't dare to stop the old lady. Hence, Jiyan wore a set of fine cotton nightgown, with her legs bare, and she was clearly seen by Mrs. Lee as she slept with her arms stretched out. Old Mrs. Lee is really angry and funny. This girl usually learns the rules very well by looking at them, but in fact they are all just bluffing. She should do whatever she wants in private. You must know that ladies from other families always lie flat on their backs with their hands on their lower abdomen when sleeping. When they wake up in the morning, the quilt is almost completely undisturbed. How can I be like my granddaughter, who uses the quilt as a horse to ride? Jian slept until her stomach growled before she woke up. She was still a little confused when she saw her grandma sitting next to her doing needlework. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 806. Chapter 806. Damn girl, she still has a conscience. She crawled over on her hands and knees, using her grandma's thigh as a pillow, moaning and refusing to get up. Old Mrs. Lee's heart was so warm that she almost melted. She patted her granddaughter and scolded her. The lazy girl in my family is already a grown-up girl, and she still hangs out with her grandma, so she's not afraid of other people's jokes. Whoever wants to laugh can laugh at it. Anyway, I'm not afraid. Jian snuggled deeper into her grandma's arms and yawned. They are just jealous because they don't have a good grandma like me. Mrs. Lee smiled happily, pulled the quilt over her granddaughter, and said with a smile, "Okay, okay. They are just jealous, and they are also jealous that grandma has such a kind and well-behaved granddaughter like you." Jian blinked twice and asked with a smile, "Grandma, do you know what I was busy with last night?" "Of course I know it, the whole new capital also knows it now." Mrs. Lee tidied her granddaughter's messy hair. Seeing that her granddaughter felt guilty, she lowered her head and kissed her. "Silly girl, grandma won't blame you. Whoever it is, if someone slaps you, you have to find a way to slap it back. My granddaughter is such a smart and outstanding child. Why can't she vent her anger after being bullied? Grandma is just old and incompetent. Otherwise, grandma would have avenged you long ago. Grandma, you are so kind." She felt happy after hearing the good news, and hugged her arms. "Wow, I must have saved the country in my last life, otherwise how could I have such a good grandma in this life?" "Silly girl," Mrs. Lee patted her granddaughter gently and whispered, "Grandma was very worried last night because she was afraid that you would kill too many people and ruin your character. I heard this morning that no one was injured. Grandma is so proud. My lucky girl is the best child in the world and the kindest little fairy." Of course, Jian was so proud of the praise that he raised his chin and replied, "I will definitely kill those bad guys who want to kill me. But those who guard the granary are nothing but cowards at best, so just spare their lives." "Haha, yes, spare their lives," Mrs. Lee laughed and became more and more relieved. Grandparents and grandson were tired for a long time. Then Jian got up, washed and changed clothes. Mrs. Lee helped pick out the clothes. She wore a bright red feather gauze jacket and a large floral skirt, looking as happy as ever. Sun's hand was clever, and she served the little master with a smile, and took a delicate and complicated hairstyle. The headdress is simple, with only 2 red gold hairpins with red stamens inlaid on the back of the head, echoing the color of the coat. Jian didn't like wearing heavy pendants on her ears, so she chose a pair of coral earrings. Finally, put on a pair of mutton fat jade bracelets on your hands, and the look is complete. The little lazy pig that was drooling while sleeping just now has suddenly transformed into the Lee family's baby pimple that everyone loves and admires. Shui Yun brought the little girl up with brunch. Steamed rice with new rice, braised shrimps in oil, stewed tofu, stir-fried vegetables, stung with old vinegar, plus a big bowl of mutton and radish soup that is healthy and warm for the stomach. Jian pulled her grandma to sit down, and called Grandma He and Shui Ling Shui Yun to eat together. Mammy He, Shui Ling and Shui Yun have been coming to the Li family for a few years, and they know the tempers of their masters very well. Masters don't care about the rules, as long as they don't embarrass the family in front of outsiders. They usually take care of and serve their masters, do their errands, and perform their duties well. In fact, the master does not care about their status as slaves, and treats them more like a family member. This is also the reason why they are loyal to the Li family and refuse to slack off at all. I'm afraid you won't find another master like this in the whole world. Everyone was chatting and laughing, discussing while eating, and then went to the greenhouse to see, pick some fruits and vegetables, and bring them back to the old house. As soon as he put down his bowls and chopsticks, Dr. Zhang rushed in like a gust of wind. This old man has not appeared in front of people for a while. If the boy in charge of delivering food hadn't said that the old man ate up every meal, everyone would have broken into his small courtyard to look for him. At this moment, the old man came to the door on his own initiative, and everyone was happy. Ji Yan immediately stepped forward to greet him, looked at him carefully and then frowned. The two big dark circles on the old man's face showed that he had stayed up late again to ponder the prescription. She complained as soon as she opened her mouth, "Grandpa Zhang, how old are you? Are you still treating yourself like a young person? Didn't you promise me last time that you would eat well and sleep well and not stay up late?" "That's embarrassing." Dr. Zhang waved his hands nonchalantly, threw 2 bottles into Ji Yan's arms, then put the remaining rice in the basin into the mutton soup, and ate it. Mrs. Li quickly stopped her, "Brother, you can't eat the leftovers. Wait a moment and let Shui Yun make you a bowl of noodles. It will be ready soon." Shenjiang Dr. Zhang shook his head, almost as if pouring soup and rice down his throat. Soon, he finished eating, wiped his mouth, and then glared at Ji Yan and cursed, "This worthless thing is actually driven to his home and assassinated. You are so easy to bully in the eyes of others. Don't say I am your master when you go out in the future. I'm afraid I will lose all my face. These 2 bottles of stuff are just random things I thought up for fun, take them. The stuff in the red bottle is colorless and odorless. If you dig your fingernail and pop it out, it doesn't matter whether it is sucked into your stomach or stuck to your body, it will kill you in just a few breaths, and you won't even think about your last words. The potion in the white bottle is meant to be applied to the weapon. It can poison the weapon if it breaks even the slightest bit of oily skin, and if you apply it once, you don't need to apply it again for a month. Keep it with me at all times, and if I see anyone who doesn't like it or who is unfavorable to you, I'll poison him. If I hear that you are being bullied again, I will poison all the people in Zindu and break your legs when I come back." After saying that, the old man snorted loudly, and then walked away in a hurry. Ji Yan clenched the 2 bottles, her heart burning. This arrogant old kid never gives in. He didn't know how many nights it took to prepare these 2 poisons. How could he just play with them casually? The reason why he worked so hard was because he was afraid that she would be bullied and wanted to support her careless apprentice. "Grandpa Zhang, go home and take a nap, and wait for me to roast your leg of lamb with wine tonight." Ji Yan chased him to the door and shouted loudly. Mercy! Dr. Zhang did not look back, but just waved his hand, and a word came in the wind, "That's not bad, this girl still has a conscience." Mrs. Li couldn't help laughing and said, "This big brother, no matter how bad his mouth is, he really has nothing to say to our family." "Yes, Grandma, you see so many people are kind to me, I am so happy." Ji Yan stuffed the 2 bottles into her arms and happily helped her to go to the greenhouse, picking more vegetables along the way. "The roasted leg of lamb is a bit greasy, so I need to add 2 spicy and sour side dishes for the old man. Not to mention that the family is busy killing sheep and grilling the barbecue, just that Tao Hongying and Mrs. Lu are away as guests today." The wife of the Minister of Industry, Cao Shilang, was Mrs. Liu's handkerchief when she was not out of the cabinet. Now that the daughter-in-law has become a mother-in-law after many years, she has become the head of the house, and she has also given birth to an eldest grandson. Today, the full moon banquet is being held in a lively manner. Since the Cao family also had boys in the military camp, Mrs. Lu handed over a few words, and the Cao family happily sent an invitation to Tao Hongying. Mrs. Lu is about the same age as Mrs. Cao. Mrs. Cao became a grandmother, and the Liu families Hyman and Jiajia are still studying. The gap is simply too big. Mrs. Liu was full of envy and jealousy, which made Mrs. Cao laugh heartily. But there is also Mrs. Zhou in the house, the daughter of the Yan family and Li Yang's biological sister. Although she didn't dare to offend the Li family, her face was not good. It was obvious that she was blaming the Li family for what happened back then. Tao Hongying, for the sake of Li Yang's face, didn't want to get into trouble with her and let outsiders see the fun. So she and Mrs. Liu came out to change clothes. As a result, as soon as the two of them went out, they didn't go far when another guest came from the opposite side. The woman, who was over 50 years old, was dressed very elegantly, but her face was a little gloomy. Tao Hongying asked Mrs. Liu, "Sister-in-law, who is this?" Mrs. Liu had a sullen face and snorted coldly. End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 807. Chapter 807, Enemies are extremely jealous when they meet. You don't know this person, but you must have heard of it. Mrs. Liu grabbed Tao Hongying's sleeve in advance and said, "This is the queen's mother, the eldest lady of the Wu family." Tao Hongying was stunned for a moment, and then her eyes turned red. The family has been investigating for a while. Although the investigation was not very clear, we still found some clues. This is the Wu family. They want to kill Fu Niuer and give a bowl of their blood to the queen. And this matter was instigated by Mrs. Wu from beginning to end. This is not the queen's mother, this is the murderer of the enemy. Tao Hongying felt as if a knife had been stabbed into her heart. The pain was severe, but her mind was extremely clear. She whispered, "Sister-in-law, don't worry, I won't do anything stupid." Mrs. Liu was a little surprised, but she still advised her, "Don't be impulsive. She is the queen's mother after all. Don't worry, sister-in-law, I've been out with you so many times I haven't learned anything else but pretending to be a good person lately." Tao Hongying took a deep breath and patted Mrs. Liu's hand. Mrs. Liu was finally relieved to hear that she still had the heart to joke. She saw Mrs. Wu talking to Mrs. Cao and said, "A few days ago, I heard someone say that the daughter of the Cao family in the Wu family's prime minister was the daughter-in-law of the Cao family. I thought it was a rumor. Looking at things like this today, it may be true. I just don't know whether the Cao family will mind that the Wu family has been involved in a book by Mr. Wen and Mr. Wu is thinking about his past behind closed doors and took the opportunity to reject the marriage." Tao Hongying's eyes flashed, and she sneered, "Don't worry, don't talk about the marriage with the Cao family, I will make sure that their family will not be able to find a wife in Xindu." Mrs. Liu was startled, "Do you have any ideas, or does the Wu family have something in your hands?" Tao Hongying refused to say anything more, and only said, "Let's go back. You will know in a while." As soon as they returned to the flower hall, Mrs. Cao walked in to welcome Mrs. Wu. Mrs. Cao had a smile on her face, but everyone could see that she was not sincere and enthusiastic. Obviously she did not welcome Mrs. Wu's arrival. Everyone was surprised to see Mrs. Wu appear. After all, the Wu family has been in trouble one after another in the past few days, which can be said to have damaged their reputation and ruined their wealth. Isn't Madame Wu angry, and still has the heart to go out to the banquet? Mrs. Wu was stared at by everyone, and she felt angry and aggrieved. She doesn't want to come out either. The house was a mess, and she, the housewife, had endless things to deal with. However, the marriage that was previously discussed privately with the Cao family has been basically finalized. We only need to wait for the Cao family to give us confirmation before inviting the official media to come. As a result, because the family was involved in a copy of the book, the Cao family never mentioned this matter again. Although the master of the Cao family is the minister of the Ministry of Industry and is not very powerful, the Cao family is powerful. The uncles and brothers of the minister of CAO are almost spread over 6 ministries, and there are 8 or 9 in total. If he marries the CAO family and becomes the half-son of the CAO family, not only will he not be afraid of this investigation, but his future will also be guaranteed. That's why she endured her headache and shamelessly came to congratulate her, and she was even more determined to reveal the news about the marriage between the two families today. In this way, the CAO family had to get engaged for the sake of their daughter's reputation, even if they were unwilling to do so. Thinking of this, she smiled and asked MRSCAO, "Where's our Molan? Why isn't he in the house? This child is good looking and has a docile temperament. I like her so much. I haven't seen her for a few days. I really miss her." Such a familiar tone, every sentence is full of love. The other women immediately heard the different taste, so they all put down their tea bowls and waited to eat the melon. How could MRSCAO not guess MRSWu's plan? She gritted her teeth with hatred in her heart, but she still had to smile in response. This child has a soft temper and doesn't want to see people. I feel sorry for her and want to stay for 2 more years, so I won't let her out. What if someone takes a fancy to me and wants to steal my daughter? These words were almost pointed at MRSWu's nose. My daughter wants to stay for 2 more years, so don't make any more decisions. But MRSWu understood it, but when she was about to pretend to be confused and continue to speak, she was interrupted by Tao Hongying. MRSCAO, I don't go out often, but I have a blind eye. I don't know who this is. She looked at MRSWu, with a look of curiosity and confusion on her face. MRSCAO was happy that someone had rescued her, and she quickly smiled and said to Tao Hongying, blame me, I didn't even say a few words to the fourth lady. This is the eldest lady of the Wu family and the mother of the queen. Oh, it turns out she is the queen's mother. How disrespectful. Tao Hongying smiled enthusiastically and stood up to salute. Someone nearby looked at her and curled her lips, laughing at Tao Hongying for being so flattering. Tao Hongying didn't seem to notice, and still talked to MRSWu enthusiastically. A few days ago, I was lucky enough to meet the uncle of your house among the white clouds. I was shocked at that time. Now that I see my wife, I know that the uncle of your house has followed my mother. MRSWu was pleased with herself and nodded reservedly. Unexpectedly, Tao Hongying then said, I just don't know when Uncle Guo will get married. We, a small family in the Li family, don't have a chance to have a wedding drink. It's really a pity. Fortunately, MRSQaju likes to eat the dim sum from our shop, and Mr. Guo also loves his wife and bought 7 or 8 boxes of dim sum that day. It's just that my uncle's belly is big and it's hard to digest it after eating so many snacks. I've been thinking about this. It's great to meet my wife today. When I go back, I must tell my uncle and his wife for me. If she likes to eat anything from now on, just come to her door and tell her, and I'll ask my guy to bake it fresh and send it over. The more MRSWu listened, the more she felt something was wrong. She changed her face and scolded, what nonsense are you talking about? Our Yanner is not married at all. Where did the wife come from? Tao Hongying was probably a little unhappy because she was scolded, so she retorted with a smile on her face. MRSWu, this is not right. It is a great joy for Uncle Guo to get married, and it is even more joyful for Uncle Guo to be pregnant. What do you have to hide? Besides, even if I saw it wrong, I can't hear it wrong, right? Uncle Guo called that pot-bellied woman his wife. The two of them were so affectionate that it made people jealous. How could it be wrong? If that woman is not the wife of the uncle, is she still the mistress whom the uncle keeps outside? Impossible. Whose boy calls his mistress madam? Whose boy makes his mistress pregnant before they get married? Tao Hongying held up the gold hairpin stuck in her bun, as if she had no idea what kind of big melon she had thrown away, and continued, seriously, madam, you have to talk to Uncle Guo carefully when you get back. We haven't even gotten married yet, but we have raised a mistress and outside who dares to marry his daughter to him as his official wife in the future. This is a big deal, and we must not ignore it, otherwise everyone will spread the rumor that the upper beams of the Wu family are not straight and the lower beams are crooked. By then, Mr. Wu and Mr. Marquis will be criticized by others, and it will be too late. Mrs. Wu's face was livid with anger. She wanted to interrupt, but Tao Hongying's mouth was too fast, leaving no room for her to interrupt and refute. Looking at everyone around her, they were stretching their necks hard, looking like they were eating melon till their throats were filled with food. She really felt like her heart was on fire. How presumptuous! Which family are you from? How dare you come here to act like a fool? Do you know what a serious crime it is to slander the uncle of the country and smear the prince's family? End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 808. Chapter 808. I'm the best at peeling and cramping. Tao Hongying pretended to be stunned, and then laughed. Oh, blame me, blame me. I forgot to introduce myself to Mrs. Wu just now. But our family is a small one, and my general's name is not very famous. I'm afraid my wife won't know about it, but when it comes to my daughter, I think Mrs. Wu must know it. Mrs. Wu snorted coldly. Who is your daughter? She's just a cat or a dog, I don't know her. No, Tao Hongying slowly stopped smiling, with an equally cold face. Mrs. Wu doesn't know anyone, and it's impossible not to know my daughter. Because, my daughter is, Princess Kangal, and she was given a fiefdom of Gold Beach. Princess Kangal? Broken Gold Beach. Mrs. Wu's heart skipped a beat, she instinctively shrank her shoulders, and her face turned 3 cents pale. No wonder this woman exposed the scandal in her family when she came up. It turned out to be that girl's mother. She tried to calm down and wanted to speak, but Tao Hongying got there first. Mrs. Wu's expression is obviously that she has remembered something. Can Mrs. Wu tell me why she is so familiar with my daughter? Tao Hongying almost gritted her molar teeth and urged her with a smile. After all, Mrs. Wu is so rich and noble, it is my daughter's honor to know her. Mrs. Wu will definitely come to our home if there is a chance in the future. I don't know anything else. What I'm best at is using a knife to chop meat, peeling skin, and cramping. She spoke the last 8 words one word at a time, and Mrs. Wu couldn't help but tremble in her heart. She has absolutely no doubt that if she had a knife at hand, Princess Kangal's mother would probably kill her right away. But thinking of the queen in the palace, she tried to cheer up and sneered, I'm just a mud-legged person, how can I have the nerve to invite me to dinner? Huh, I feel dirty. Tao Hongying dusted off her sleeves and refused to give in. What Mrs. Wu said is worse than even a shrew in the market. Whose family has been a scholarly family since ancient times, counting 3 generations up, aren't they all mud-legged? Besides, what's wrong with clay legs? The grains, vegetables, chicken, fish, meat, and eggs you eat are all the fruits of clay legs' labor. Doesn't Mrs. Wu despise these things as dirty? Then what does Mrs. Wu eat on weekdays? Make a hole in the window and drink Northwest wine 3 times a day. Many women eating melon finally couldn't hold back their laughter, but they didn't dare to offend Mrs. Wu, so they all turned into coughing. Mrs. Cao was so angry that her hair stood on end. After the Wu family son did such a scandal, he still missed her precious daughter. At this moment, listening to Tao Hongying scolding her happily, I felt extremely relieved. She was so lucky to invite Tao Hongying over for a drink today. Mrs. Wu's face was so dark that ink dripped from her face. When has she ever been so embarrassed? Sure enough, the Li family is a disaster, taking advantage of her daughter's good fortune and preventing her daughter from having a prince. Not only does she not feel guilty, but she is so arrogant. Okay, you are such a sharp-tongued Mrs. Li Si. I have underestimated you, knowing that she could not get any favors today, She stood up and said, "I hope you can always be so sharp-tongued and never follow me. Lower your head." Tao Hongying also stood up, with her back straight. "Now I don't have to worry about Mrs. Wu. Our Li family behaves uprightly, sits upright, is loyal to Tian Wu, and has a clear conscience towards everyone in the world. 10,000 steps back, even if I bow to anyone, I will not bow to you. Every daughter in any family is born in 10 months of pregnancy and raised carefully. They are all the eyes of the mother. Don't just think that your own daughter is the most valuable. I, Tao Hongying, am a farm shrew, barefooted and not afraid of wearing shoes. Whoever dares to touch my daughter, I will fight to the death with whomever I want to see who regrets it." Mrs. Wu gritted her teeth and turned away without even saying hello to Mrs. Cao. Tao Hongying was still upset and shouted after him, "Mrs. Wu, remember to tell Uncle Guo when you go back, don't bring your concubines to our shop in the future. Our shop only accepts serious people." Mrs. Wu stumbled, turned around, glared at Tao Hongying fiercely, and left quickly. Tao Hongying Shiren sat down, took a sip of the cold tea, and breathed a long sigh of relief. The hatred that had been holding in her stomach for half a month finally subsided a little. She was born as a fat. The road to escape from the desert. Feeding a girl with a mouthful of food and a mouthful of water was her life. She can beat her and discipline her, but others can't even hurt her daughter's hair. Mrs. Lu quietly patted her chest, still feeling a little frightened. That was the queen's mother, who was so violently sprayed by Tao Hongying and ran away in despair with spit on her face. I'm afraid she won't have to take Tao Hongying to socialize in the future. Tao Hongying became famous this time. Sure enough, Mrs. Cao and the other women in the room looked at Tao Hongying with bright eyes. Surprise and admiration flowed from their eyes. They had just realized that the Wu family and the Li family were enmity, or because of Princess Kangol. Could it be that Mr. Wu bullied Princess Kangol? No, it seems that the queen bullied Princess Kangol, but why didn't they hear anything about it? Moreover, Princess Kangol has been ill for a long time and did not enter the palace. Everyone seemed to have a little rabbit in their hearts, and they could hardly help but scratch. But they didn't dare to ask, if Tao Hongying sprayed at them again. The fighting power is too strong, they can't bear it. The room was strangely quiet for a while. After all, it was Mrs. Cao who was the host. She quickly invited everyone to drink tea and snacks. From the snacks, she started talking about the booming business in Bianjian, and then took the initiative to extend an olive branch to Tao Hongying. "For madam, my Lanner is old enough, and the family is going to start giving her a wedding. I have prepared a lot of dowry for her privately, and it is almost complete. But there is still a recipe for dim sum. I hope that if she learns some crafts, she can be more filial to her parents-in-law and gain favor when she gets married in the future. I wonder if Mrs. Li Si has a suitable one. I can offer a high price." Tao Hongying smiled and said, "Mrs. Cao, you're welcome. You and my Lu family's sister-in-law are handkerchiefs, so I should call you sister. That girl Mo Lan is my niece. My niece needs to add some money to her dowry, so naturally I, as my aunt, have to help. It just so happened that I was thinking about a kind of square milk cake a few days ago. It is small and exquisite in appearance, soft and easy to chew. It is very good and is not sold in the White Clouds. It is an occasional snack for the elderly and children in our family. I'll have someone deliver a box tomorrow. Sister Cao will taste it. If she thinks it suits her, she'll decide on this recipe." Mrs. Cao smiled happily and quickly thanked her. In the past, the family had always kept a respectful distance from the upstart Li family. But when we got along today, I found that Mrs. Li Si was neat and cheerful in doing things, and she could move around more often in the future. Actually, she is not really in need of the snack recipe, but she is just using this reason to send more thank you gifts to the Li family tomorrow. After all, Tao Hongying had just exposed Uncle Guo's scandal and indirectly saved her daughter from jumping into the fire pit. With all the talking and laughing, The banquet was soon started. Tao Hongying was moved to the main table by MRSCAO. Tao Hongying did not give in. She sat down generously and praised the dishes. She is a cook by nature, and she explains everything about the color and taste of the dishes to the preparation techniques. She occasionally gives everyone tips on how to cook. The women were interested and couldn't help but ask a few questions, which made the banquet more lively. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 809. Chapter 809, I can't afford to offend him, I can't afford to offend him. Mrs. Jo sat on the seat at the door without daring to raise her head. Remembering the cold looks she received when Tao Hongying first came in, I really wish I could turn back time and take them back quickly. Can't afford to offend, can't afford to offend. When the sun turned to the west, everyone said goodbye. After getting on the carriage and walking out of the street, Mrs. Lu grabbed Tao Hongying's hand and praised her repeatedly. Hongying, you are so awesome. I don't need to take you with me anymore. There were so many people just now. I'm afraid that if someone has something to do, they'll have a drink with you. Why didn't I notice it before? You are so sharp-tongued. If Mrs. Wu were older, you would probably make her angry to death on the spot. Tao Hongying sighed, shook Mrs. Liu's hand, and said, Sister-in-law, I used to feel that I was from a low background, had never read any books, didn't understand the rules, and was afraid of being laughed at when I went out to socialize. So, I hid, cooked at home, and occasionally went to restaurants, and lived a very comfortable life. But then someone wanted to touch Funiuer, but I couldn't help at all, and I realized how useless I was. Today I had the courage to give it a try, and found out that those high-ranking nobles are actually no different from those local dogs in our village who like to bark. If I hit me with a stick, they would be scared. If I throw a bone, they would smile like a ball of flowers in front of me. She unconsciously raised her chin and said to Mrs. Lu, and even more to herself, now that I have figured it out, I will be able to play around with them in the future, and I will no longer be deaf and blind. That's right, Mrs. Lu was so happy that she patted Tao Hongying hard. She actually understood Tao Hongying too well. Even though she was from a good background and became the head of the family after getting married, and had constant social activities, she was sometimes intimidated. Tao Hongying, a peasant woman, suddenly had to put on a smile and deal with a group of noble ladies who had higher eyes on her. It was even more difficult for her to adapt. Fortunately, Tao Hongying seems to have opened up the two channels of Ren and Du today. Sure enough, don't touch a woman's child, otherwise the rabbit will start biting. The carriage first took Mrs. Lu home, and then left the city and returned to Sujintan. Half a mile away from her yard, Tao Hongying smelled the aroma of barbecue ingredients, and she couldn't help chatting with Granny Lin and Xiaocheng. My prodigal girl must be thinking about food again. She only prepared the jar of barbecue ingredients for a few days, and she kept shouting that the cumin in it was rare, for fear that I would cause trouble, but she was willing to use it herself. Mammy Lin smiled and said, young master and the others like to eat skewers. I wonder if they are back today? The princess treats the eldest young master and the others best, even if they run out of barbecue ingredients, it's not for themselves. Tao Hongying also laughed when she heard this. Her children have a good relationship, which is something the whole family is happy to see. Soon, the carriage arrived in front of the door. As soon as Tao Hongying entered, she saw a charcoal fire burning in the center of the yard, and her precious daughter was rolling up her sleeves and spreading ingredients on the half-cooked roasted whole lamb. Occasionally, some ingredients fall into the charcoal fire and are quickly burned to ashes, making the aroma more intense. The mutton in this season is the fattest, and the fat is constantly dripping. Sing was squatting next to the charcoal fire, his fat face was red from the heat, and he was drooling. He occasionally looked up at the door, then ran over with his little fat legs, then hugged Tao Hongying's thigh and complained softly. Fourth Grandma, Sing is hungry, woohoo, my aunt won't give me any sheep to eat. Tao Hongying bent down to pick up her grandnephew and coaxed him with a smile, Auntie is so bad. You don't even give us stars to eat sheep? Fourth Grandma will slap her on the hand for a while to make her remember. Sing looked down at his little hands, remembering the last time he lost his temper and hit his great-grandmother. His mother took a bamboo board and beat his little hands until they were red and painful. He quickly shook his head, hugged Tao Hongying and kissed her again and again, pleading softly, if fourth grandma doesn't beat her, my aunt's hands will hurt and she won't be able to make delicious food. Ha ha ha, Tao Hongying was amused and laughed, and kissed the fat boy, you are so heartless, you are so mean-spirited. Jiyan heard the commotion and saw her mother standing at the door, with her back to the sun that was about to set. The light glow made her smile brightly. It seemed as if the depression that had been lingering between my mother's brows and eyes for many days had dissipated. She was overjoyed and shouted loudly, Mom, you're back. Yes, why did you remember roasting a whole lamb? Tao Hongying hugged the star and stepped forward and asked with a smile. Jiyan put down the food box and said, I have nothing to do. Let's roast a sheep and serve wine to Grandpa Zhang. Today is a good day, why don't I prepare some more ingredients and our family can have a drink too? After saying that, she asked Shui Yun to help look after the roasted lamb, and then ran to prepare the rest of the ingredients with a smile. Chicken wings, chicken necks, cicada pupae, freshly stuffed sausages, prawns, and fish, in short, the more the better. When Xiaoqing saw the princess passing by, he winked at her, hesitated for a moment, and then followed her. After a while, Jiyan knew the whole process of my mother's great power. She really wanted to hug her enemy Mrs. Wu and kiss her a few times, thank her for her devotion, and was willing to be a whetstone, so that her mother could finally regain her fierce and sharp appearance. Life is only a few decades long. It's nothing more than a grudge. The Li family can't do anything to the Wu family for the time being, because they want to find an opportunity to eradicate them. But when we meet on a narrow road, it would be good to give it a few sharp cuts and vent our anger. Shui Ling was wiping her saliva and helping to deliver the ingredients, but suddenly she was sent by her master to deliver a message in the city. She was still reluctant to leave. It wasn't until the master promised to leave her 5 favorite chicken necks that she went out quickly. By the time the sun completely set and the sky was dark, not only Li Laoer came back from the city, but also Li Zhensheng and Mr. Wen, along with Jiaran and Cat Brother, also came back. 2 bonfires were lit in the yard of the Li family. They were burning loudly and lighting up the surrounding area as bright as day. The aroma of roasting sheep can be smelled throughout the village. There was a naughty boy who couldn't bear his greed and ran outside the door. Tao Hongying gave them a plate of chicken wings and sent them to the school to deliver a plate of kebabs to Mr. Zhang. The village chief Uncle Zhao and other old men, as well as Lu Baiatu were also invited over. Tonight's host and guest, Dr. Zhang, was sitting swaggering right in front of the roasted lamb, with a nonchalant expression on his face, but his eyes were always staring at the roasted lamb. Until Jiyan cut a leg of lamb with her own hands and placed it in front of him, he nodded arrogantly, but his beard had already stood up happily. Before Li Laoer came back, he urgently arranged for manpower to add fuel to Uncle Guo's scandal. At this moment, everyone is sitting around, eating and drinking, and naturally they have to talk. Grandma Li and others found out that Tao Hongying had shown great power today, and they were all surprised and happy. Yes, that's how it should be. No matter whose mother she is, she must be scolded if she deserves it. That is, if you have the ability to discipline your son well, don't get caught by the tail. No one in this family is good. I really don't know how they chose their daughter as the queen. I heard that the Queen Mother personally selected her for the Emperor from a group of beautiful girls. Oh, no wonder. If it wasn't my own mother, who would care about it? End of this chapter. Dressed as a farm boy, he cheated on his way out of the desert. Author, Delayed Flowering. Chapter 810. Chapter 810. If you don't admit defeat, you can't afford to lose. Everyone murmured a few words, feeling relieved. Mr. Wen and others discussed that tomorrow they will speed up the investigation at Dali Temple, put more pressure on the Wu family, and force the Wu family to take action again. At this moment, everyone was talking about the Wu family, and it was no surprise that everyone was in a frenzy. In the study room in the front yard of the Wu family, the eldest man of the Wu family was chasing his son with a ruler in his hand and waving it non-stop. "Beast, I might as well beat you to death. At this time, the family is about to be in trouble, and you can't help, and you will cause trouble outside. What on earth did I do to you? What sin have I done?" Uncle Wu Yan didn't dare to run away. He lay on the ground with his head in his hands, crying and begging for mercy. "Dad, I know I was wrong. Mainyang was adopted by me last year. At that time, I didn't expect that our family would encounter trouble. It hurts, Dad, stop fighting, I don't dare to fight anymore." Mr. Wu kept his ruler in his hands and cursed, "It's not unusual for you to play with a few women, but why can't you hide your tail? I killed that one at the beginning of the year, and people found out about it, and they are trying to fix it in our house. Now I'm about to fix a girl from the Cao family for you, and you've got a pregnant concubine. Have you got any brains? I'll beat you to death, you idiot. What are you doing here? You'll die in peace." Master, Mrs. Wu couldn't help but feel distressed. She rushed forward and hugged her son, begging for mercy over and over again. "Master, Yanner knows he made a mistake, so don't fight him again, he is still young, how could he not make a mistake? Besides, that woman is pregnant with our family's blood, so it's normal for Yanner to be reluctant to let go." Mr. Wu became more and more angry when he heard this. He hit his old wife twice on the back with his ruler. "You prodigal bitch, I haven't settled the score with you yet, but you jumped out? If you hadn't been so pampered, would you have raised such a rebellious son? He is raising a concubine and having children outside, don't say you don't know. You knew how to hide it from me, but now you are fine. You got into trouble and missed important family events before you begged for mercy." Mrs. Wu screamed in pain, but she did not dare to say anything because she felt guilty. She does know that her son is misbehaving outside. But in her opinion, there are not many men who are not lewd. Even if a woman outside gives birth to a child, she can find a village to raise her first, and then when her daughter-in-law comes in, she can take him back. At that time, whoever can make a fuss about divorce because of a concubine will have to endure it quietly, and then it will not be a big deal. How could she have imagined that she would be so unlucky to meet the Li family at Cao's house and get rid of the scandal without hesitation? She tried her best to protect her son and begged for mercy in a low voice, "Master, it's useless to kill me and my son now. I will go to the Cao family tomorrow and have a good talk with Mrs. Cao. When a girl from the Cao family marries her, I will treat her well. There is also that concubine, go to the mother and leave the son. It's a pity that she is trying to make amends here, but her son is not living up to expectations." When he heard that his beloved was going to be killed, he started shouting, "Mom, you can't kill Mei Niang, I promised her to let her enter the house as a concubine." When Mrs. Wu heard this, she wanted to grab the ruler and beat her stupid son to death. Fortunately, Mr. Wu no longer had any illusions about his stupid son. He threw away the ruler and called his confidants to follow him in. He ordered, "Pull this useless thing down and lock it in the room. 1 meal a day, no food. My order is that no one is allowed to visit or come out." Chang Sui responded and quickly pulled Wu Yan out. Wu Yan naturally disagreed and cried out, "Mother, save me, save me. Mei Niang is about to give birth, and she's still waiting for me to go back." Mrs. Wu pretended not to hear, and it wasn't until her son was dragged away that she cautiously asked, "Master, is this how our family recognizes him? If the emperor doesn't care about the queen, our family will be deprived of its title." Mr. Wu was irritable. He sat in his chair and said coldly after a while, "No, we can't admit defeat, and our family will not lose either. Dali Temple and the Ministry of Punishment both have to look at the emperor's wishes and also worry about the empress. They will not find out the results too quickly. During this period, they have at least 2 months of free time to use. Our family's only hope is the empress. If the empress is, if you can conceive a prince, you will be a legitimate prince and a future emperor. Just for the sake of the prince, the emperor will be open to our family and will not let the prince have a corrupt wife. The master is saying that we need to." Mrs. Wu thought of Tao Hongying's warning during the day, and felt a little frightened. Mr. Wu did not notice it, and continued, "There is no turning back. Since we have become enemies with the Li family, we will die. Before the Marquis Zinting comes back, we must crush the Li family." After saying that, he finally raised his head and glanced at his old wife, who looked anxious, feeling more and more bored. "You don't have to worry about these things, just take good care of your father. If her father dies, the queen will observe mourning for 27 days. By then, even if she drinks her heart's blood, she will not be able to share a room with the emperor." Okay, I understand, sir," Mrs. Wu quickly responded. "I was thinking about taking out the best ginseng plant in the warehouse. As long as I can hold on to the old Marquis' attitude, it will be done for 2 months. By then, if the queen can become pregnant and the old Marquis passes away, no matter how angry the emperor is, he will not be able to do anything to the Wu family." Nearly all the people in the Li family were keeping an eye on the Wu family and the Wang family. Naturally, they discovered the Wu family's changes early on. Everyone got the news, and began to be on tight alert. Ji Yin had nothing to do and went out again at night. This time, the robber whom the people speculated burned another large farm belonging to the Wang family. The food was still missing, and the people patrolling and guarding the farm were not hurt. In fact, after the Wu family's misfortune, the Wang family had already added protection to the farm. But Ji Yin has space in hand. It is simply a magical tool for transporting food. It was done in less than a quarter of an hour, making the Wang family very difficult to guard against. After receiving the news, the Wang family was naturally furious, and then they were thankful that the other granary had not been poisoned. If you hear the good news, you will definitely roll your eyes. It's not that she showed mercy, it's that the farm was too far away and couldn't be traveled back and forth in one night. If she wasn't worried that grandma would get angry if she couldn't see her when she got up early, she would definitely not let it go. But even if she only harvested 3 granaries, she still gained a lot. At this moment, food bags are placed in every available space in the small courtyard of the space. Soon there will be no place to set foot. Hands of good news, looking forward to the return of my adoptive father. With his foster father's ability, he will definitely find a suitable place to store the grain. When the time comes, she will keep 1/3 for emergencies and the rest for the Northern Expeditionary Army to use as military rations. It is not said that the Wu family's dog jumped over the wall, nor that the Li family's dog is waiting for danger. It is just that far away in Quanzhou, on the vast sea, there are 2 large ships chasing the Japanese pirates' small boat and beating up the drowned dog. Seeing no enemy, the Japanese pirates actually lit the boat on fire, turned around and rammed it towards the big ship, as if they were both going to die together. The 4th update is here. I paid off yesterday's debt and will resume 3 updates tomorrow. End of this chapter.